The Blackhawk was at 8,000 feet when they cut her harness. No warning, no explanation, just the crew chief's knife slicing through the straps securing Staff Sergeant Sarah Blake to the helicopter floor. She had 3 seconds to process before 2 sets of hands shoved her into the Afghan night. No parachute, no rope, no chance. At least, that's what the 5 Delta Force operators watching from the cabin thought. They were about to learn why the 75th Ranger Regiment kept Sarah Blake's file classified for 7 years. But before I tell you how she survived the impossible, drop a comment with where you're watching from and hit subscribe. What happened next changed everything they knew about human survival. The morning started calm at Forward Operating Base Chapman. The Hindu Kush Mountains loomed against a painfully clear sky. Staff Sergeant Sarah Blake sat alone in the briefing room, cleaning her spotless rifle with precision. 5 years in the Rangers taught her that quiet moments before a mission were when danger crept in. At 28, Sarah didn't look like a typical elite soldier. Average height, lean, with short dark hair and restless brown eyes that blended into crowds. Perfect for missions where being remembered meant death. Blake! Major Carter's voice snapped her focus. You're sitting this one out. She glanced up, hands still on her rifle. Sir. Orders from above. Delta boys need flight hours and our AO. You're just along for terrain familiarization. No ground ops. He nodded at the 5 Delta operators lounging in plastic chairs. Their leader, Master Sergeant Jake Thorne, had a scarred face that screamed trouble. Copy, sir, Sarah said, but unease settled in her gut. In 5 years, she'd never been benched without reason. Specialist Ryan Lee, her spotter, shot her a look that said, something's off. The briefing started. Operation Copper Valley, Carter said, showing a satellite image. ISR spotted a high-value target in the Karengal Hassan Khalil bomb maker behind 3 Kia last month. The room tensed. Sarah knew 2 of those men, torn apart by Khalil's IEDs. Delta takes point for a snatch and grab. Blake, you're in the bird for Overwatch only. Questions? Thorne leaned back. Why Ranger Overwatch if we're not expecting contact? Insurance, Carter replied. Blake knows these mountains better than anyone. The briefing covered approach vectors and extraction routes. Sarah memorized it all, despite her observer role, as the unease grew sharper. Lee found her at the armory. This stinks, he said. You've led 17 ops in the Karengal. Now you're a taxi. She loaded extra magazines, doubling her combat load. Watch your 6, Ryan. Something's wrong today. The Blackhawk lifted off at 2,300 hours, rotors slicing the thin air. The Delta team sat in silence, night vision goggles making them look predatory. Sarah positioned herself near the door gunner, officially for terrain, but really for a clear line of fire. 20 minutes in, the pilot's voice crackled. Approaching phase line Alpha. 3 minutes to target. Thorne stood, casual but deliberate. Sarah's hand drifted to her sidearm. Through her night vision, she caught his subtle signals to his team. Blake! Thorne's voice came through her headset, calm despite the rotors. Your problem? You're too good. Command's noticed. Every warlord knows the female ranger who owns these mountains. He stepped closer as his team boxed her in. That's bad for business. Whose business? She asked, stalling. The kind that pays better than the army, Thorne said. Khalil's not just a bomb maker, he moves opium, weapons, info. He pays to remove obstacles. It hit her like a blade. This wasn't a mission, it was a hit. How much? She asked, calculating options. 5 operators, tight space, 8,000 feet up. Bad odds. 50 grand each, plus future deals, Thorne said, smirking. Nothing personal, Blake. You keep shutting down smuggling routes. So you toss me out and call it an accident, she said. Harness fails. Soldier falls. Tragic. Thorne drew his knife, its blade dark in the green-tinted night. Unless you make this hard. Sarah's mind raced through scenarios. Fighting 5-on-1 was suicide. The pilots might be compromised. The knife moved, cutting her harness with precision. Hands grabbed her, lifting, pushing. The Blackhawk's door gaped open. 8,000 feet of void beyond. Should have stayed home, Ranger, Thorne said. Then they threw her out. The night swallowed her. At terminal velocity 120 miles per hour, the human body is just a projectile subject to physics alone. Most people would have screamed or prayed in their final seconds. Sarah Blake didn't. She got to work. First, orientation. She spread her arms and legs into a stable arch, controlling her descent like an airfoil. The mountains rushed up fast, but panic wasn't an option. She had 40 seconds before impact. Second, location. Through her night vision goggles, the Karangal Valley spread below like a map. She knew every ridge and stream. A glint of moonlight caught her eye. The Karangal River, swollen with snowmelt. Third, angle. She shifted her body, aiming for the river. It was freezing, but better than rock. The angle had to be perfect. Too steep, and she'd hit like concrete. Too shallow, and she'd break every bone. 20 seconds. She clutched her rifle, locked her ankles, and shielded her head. The river gleamed below. 10 seconds. A memory flashed. Ranger School, combat water survival. Instructor Lopez, a grizzled vet, had said, "Survive the impact by distributing force. Be smart, not tough." 5 seconds. Sarah rotated to a near vertical, feet first, 45-degree angle, toes pointed, muscles tense but not rigid, to slice the water cleanly. 2 seconds. The river filled her vision, a rushing torrent. 1 second. She took a deep breath. Impact. The water hit like hammers, shock ripping through her feet, legs, spine. Her vision flickered, white, black, white. But she'd angled right, slicing into the water, its depth slowing her descent. The cold burned, her lungs screamed, but she was alive. She hit the riverbed hard, cratering silt. Rocks scraped her vest, her helmet cracked, and her left shoulder flared with dislocation-level pain. Kicking upward, she fought the current and waterlogged gear dragging her down. Her head broke the surface, and she gasped air that tasted like survival. The current slammed her into a boulder, cracking ribs, but pushed her to the shallows. Clawing at rocks, she dragged herself onto a gravel bar, coughing water and blood. Every breath hurt. Dislocated shoulder, broken ribs, torn knee. But she was alive. The Blackhawk's rotors faded above. They'd likely circle back to confirm the kill, but the river had carried her a quarter-mile downstream, hidden by darkness and trees. Sarah staggered to her feet on the third try, vision graying. Hypothermia loomed in her soaked clothes. She stumbled into the tree-line, finding a boulder shelter. From her waterproof emergency kit, she pulled an emergency blanket to trap heat. No fire, as smoke would betray her. The morphine injector tempted her, but she needed clarity. Gritting her teeth, she relocated her shoulder, muffling a scream with her rifle sling. Then she bound her ribs with it, each move pure agony. Sarah Blake wasn't most people. Her radio was destroyed, waterlogged from the fall. Her GPS beacon worked, but activating it would alert the Delta team that tried to kill her. Alone, injured, and presumed dead in hostile territory, she didn't quit. She was a ranger, huddled under her emergency blanket, warmth creeping back into her limbs. Sarah planned. Jake Thorne and his team thought they'd eliminated a problem. They'd soon learn they'd created a vengeful ranger with nothing to lose. Dawn brought warmth after a freezing night, but also danger. Thorne's team would hunt for her body, and finding none, they'd come for her. Sarah moved twice overnight, ignoring her injuries. Pain was just data. She settled in a shallow cave, concealed with a clear view of the valley. Through cracked binoculars, she watched the Blackhawks circle her impact point. 5 figures emerged, spreading out to search. Thorne's predatory walk was unmistakable. They were armed for a fight, not a rescue. Her rifle, cleaned in the dark, was ready. Propping it on a log to steady her injured shoulder, she gauged the 800-meter shot. 1 bullet was all her body could handle. They moved like pros, but arrogantly expecting a corpse. Sergeant Daniels paused to drink, feeling safe. Their first mistake. Sarah aimed, adjusted for wind and pain, and fired, shattering Thorne's radio antenna. The shot echoed like thunder, and the team dove for cover. The message was clear. I'm alive. I can hit you. This is your warning. Silence followed. Then Thorne's voice boomed. Blake! I know it's you. She stayed silent, watching them scramble. We can work this out. Just business, he shouted. Sarah's grim smile said otherwise. She moved to a new position. Snipers never fire twice from the same spot. Her knee buckled, vision blurred, but she'd endured worse. A bullet in her hip in Iraq, a broken leg in Paktika. Pain passed, death didn't. The Delta team tried to flank her, assuming she was fleeing. They were wrong, she was hunting. 5 years in these mountains made her the ghost walker to locals, using smuggler trails to stay ahead, luring them deeper into the valley, away from their helicopter. The pilot would grow nervous, fuel low, alarms nearing. At a narrow trail, Sarah set a simple deadfall trap. When Sergeant Hayes hit the trigger, a log swung down. He dodged, but stumbled off the path, tumbling down a steep slope. Sergeant Hayes' ankle snapped when he hit the bottom, not fatal, but now the Delta team was down to 4, carrying their wounded. Their odds worsened hourly. Blake! Jake Thorne's voice, less confident now, echoed. This won't end well for you. 5 decorated operators against 1 ranger with PTSD. You know how this plays out. He was right, her word against theirs if they survived. But Sarah Blake wasn't aiming for a debate. She had a better plan. Night brought freezing cold, stiffening fingers on triggers. The Delta team camped on high ground with clear sightlines and rock cover, professional but flawed. They'd picked a spot near a stream, its noise masking movement and signaling predictable routes for water. Sarah waited until 0300, when guards struggled to stay alert. She'd spent the day gathering tools. A salvaged Taliban radio, functional enough to eavesdrop, batteries, and her waterproof digital recorder that survived the fall. She couldn't transmit, but she heard Thorne's team on an encrypted frequency. Package still active, Thorne said. Request extraction and QRF. Can't confirm elimination. Sanitize and extract. Sanitize, no evidence, no witnesses. They'd erase her existence. But Sarah had an edge. 3 nights ago, she'd cached supplies 2 kilometers away. Ammo, medical kit, and a satellite phone. To reach it, she'd go through them. Moving like a shadow, injuries screaming, she ignored the pain. The team's guards, Daniels and Carter, watched for escape, not infiltration. Sarah belly crawled through their perimeter, so slow sensors wouldn't detect her, silent as a ghost. It took an hour to cover 50 meters. She passed Daniels close enough to see his breath. A tossed rock distracted him, and she slipped into the camp. Thorne and the others slept, trusting their guards. She could have killed them, but justice mattered more. She found Thorne's satellite phone charging. Taking it would tip them off, so she sent a coded message to Ryan Lee, her trusted spotter, with coordinates and a request for backup, directing him to the cache where she'd leave her recording of Thorne's confession. Mission done, she began to slip out. Then Thorne's eyes opened, locking onto hers. His hand reached for his weapon. Her knife was faster, pinning his hand to the ground. His scream woke the camp as she vanished into the dark. Find her! Thorne roared, yanking the knife free in pain and fury. But catching her in her mountains was impossible. Sarah reached her cache at dawn. The satellite phone connected instantly. Ryan, she said to Lee's sleepy voice, now alert. Record this. She detailed the betrayal, the attempted murder, and the recorded confession. Helicopters roared closer, rescue or execution, depending on who arrived first. Sarah, stay put, Ryan Lee said. Carter's scrambling everyone. We're coming. Negative. I'm finishing this. Sarah loaded her flare gun. Get the recording to CID. I want the truth on record. 2 Blackhawks and an Apache appeared. Whose side? She'd know soon. Firing a flare skyward, a red star signaled, here I am. The first Blackhawk veered toward her. Through binoculars, she saw the gunner's weapon aimed but smiled at Ryan's face in the cabin, with Major Carter beside him, furious. The second Blackhawk headed for Thorne's camp. Sarah pictured the radio chatter, accusations, denials. Ryan had uploaded the proof to secure servers. The Apache circled, waiting. It had come down to evidence and politics. But as Ryan ran to her, Sarah knew she'd won by surviving betrayal and an 8,000-foot fall. Ryan eyeing her sling, concussion, and broken ribs. "How are you standing?" "Rangers don't quit," she said. "Or die easy." Shouts echoed from Thorne's position, arrests in progress. The Delta team faced court-martial, conspiracy, attempted murder. Their careers were done. Medics approached, but Sarah waved them off. "I'll walk." Pain flared with each step. "I survived a helicopter drop. I can make it to the bird." Carter joined her, stunned. "Blake, surviving that fall. It's impossible." "No, sir," she said, knee buckling. "Just improbable. Physics is math, and I'm good at math." She glanced at the mountains. Rangers don't need parachutes, just the will to survive. As the Blackhawk lifted off for medical care and investigation, Sarah savored her victory. Thorne's team expected her to die. Instead, her recorder held their confession, ties to smuggling, betrayal for cash. With Ryan's tech work, it was enough for convictions. 3 weeks later, Sarah stood in the briefing room, still healing. General Thompson, JSOC commander, spoke. "You survived the impossible. Fall, injuries, pursuit. Rangers lead the way, sir," she said. He offered a choice: medical retirement or a new assignment. "A unit needs your skills and grit." "What unit, sir?" Thompson smiled. "Report to Fort Bragg, Building 9. In the hallway, Ryan grinned. "Retirement or mystery job?" "Easy paths are boring," Sarah said, wincing. "Someone's gotta prove Rangers don't need parachutes." "That fall could have killed you," Ryan teased. Sarah Blake stopped, facing Ryan Lee. "They threw me out of a helicopter at 8,000 feet because I was too good, Ryan. They betrayed us for greed. I survived because I refused to let their betrayal end my story." She walked on, each step painful but stronger. Rangers don't quit. Not when tired, not when hurt, not when thrown from a helicopter. "So, what's next?" Ryan asked. Sarah's smile was sharp. "We survive, adapt, overcome. Then we make them regret thinking I was just a problem." The sun set over Fort Bragg, blood red and gold. In military prison, Jake Thorne and his team learned betraying a Ranger was a lesson in how far someone could fall and return stronger. In Building 9, a new unit awaited its toughest operator, a woman who survived an 8,000-foot drop without a parachute. Helmet cam footage recovered in the investigation showed the push, fall, and impact in grainy detail. The board studied it, baffled by her survival. The answer? Training, preparation, and refusing death. Sarah calculated angles in freefall, used her body as an airfoil, and found the one survivable path among 1,000 deadly ones. She proved a Ranger truth. Willpower, honed right, beats impossible odds. Survival isn't gear or luck. It's refusing to quit. Sarah Blake became a legend in special ops, not just for missions, but for surviving a helicopter drop and dismantling her betrayers. They thought they'd erased a problem. Instead, they created a legend. Legends are harder to kill than people. Rangers lead the way even at terminal velocity. In the Karangal Valley, Sarah showed falling isn't failing, it's whether you get up. And Rangers always do. Have you faced a moment where everyone expected failure, but you proved mindset beats circumstance? What would you do if betrayed by those meant to protect you? Could you survive an 8,000-foot fall? Share your thoughts below, we read every comment. If the story showed the human spirit outlasts the body, hit like and subscribe for more tales of unbreakable will. Share with someone who needs to know falling isn't failing. It's a chance to prove strength. More warrior stories await. Watch next, and remember, they can throw you from a helicopter, but they can't throw the Ranger out of you. Thanks for watching.